You replay conversations long after they end. Every word, every pause, every small reaction stays with you. You wonder if you said too much or not enough. And even when the moment is over, your mind keeps returning, like it is trying to fix something that cannot be undone. You analyze expressions, tones, hidden meanings that may not even exist. And somehow, it never feels fully complete inside your head. It starts with one simple thought. But your brain does not stop there. It keeps expanding the possibilities. What if they meant something else? What if you misunderstood? What if this small moment leads to something bigger later? And suddenly your mind turns a simple interaction into a complex scenario. Psychology calls this rumination, where thoughts repeat without resolution, and the more you try to stop it, the stronger it seems to come back. You try to distract yourself with something else, scrolling, watching, listening, anything to quiet your mind. But the moment things get silent, the thoughts return again, because your brain is not trying to annoy you, it is trying to protect you. Research shows the brain prefers certainty over ambiguity, so it keeps analyzing, trying to find answers even when there are none. And that is why your thoughts keep looping without an end. Sometimes it makes you feel mentally exhausted, like your mind has been working all day without rest. Even when your body is still, your brain keeps running. You wish you could just switch it off for a while. But overthinking feels like a system that never shuts down, quietly draining your energy through constant analysis and leaving you tired without knowing exactly why. But psychology says overthinking is not random. It is deeply connected to how your brain processes information. Some people are wired to think faster and deeper than others. Your brain picks up more details, more patterns, more possibilities. And instead of ignoring them, it tries to understand all of them, which is why small situations feel bigger inside your mind. Not because they are bigger, but because you see more in them. One of the rare traits behind overthinking is high cognitive processing, which means your brain naturally goes deeper than surface level. You do not just hear words, you analyze tone, intention, and emotion. You notice small shifts that most people completely ignore. This makes you insightful, but also mentally overloaded, because your brain is constantly collecting and interpreting data, even when there is nothing urgent to figure out. Another hidden trait is emotional sensitivity. You feel things more intensely even if you do not show it. A simple comment can stay with you longer than it should, not because you are weak, but because your brain processes emotions deeply. Research shows people with higher emotional awareness reflect more, which often leads to more internal dialogue and questioning. And that is why you keep thinking about moments others forget. You might also have a strong need for control. Not control over people, but control over outcomes. Your brain tries to predict what could happen next, so it builds different scenarios to avoid mistakes. Psychology calls this anticipatory thinking, where your mind prepares for the future by analyzing the present, even if it means overanalyzing things that are already over. Then there is something called the planning fallacy, where your brain underestimates uncertainty and overestimates control. You think if you analyze enough, you can get the perfect answer, the perfect response, the perfect outcome. So your mind keeps searching for that certainty, even when reality does not offer clear answers. And this keeps the cycle of overthinking alive. Another trait is high self-awareness. You are constantly observing your own thoughts, behavior, and actions. You notice how you speak, how you react, how others respond. This creates a loop where you analyze yourself, analyzing situations, which makes everything feel more intense and detailed. Research shows self-reflective people think more deeply about experiences, but it can also make it harder to let things go. Sometimes you imagine conversations that never happen, rehearsing what you would say if the moment comes, playing both sides in your head again and again, because your brain wants to be prepared for every possibility. This is linked to cognitive simulation, where your mind creates scenarios to reduce uncertainty, even if those scenarios never become real. And when things do not go as expected, your mind replays them even more, trying to understand what went wrong, what you could have done differently, as if thinking about it long enough will change the outcome. But psychology says this only increases mental fatigue. Without actually solving anything, you might also struggle with decision-making, not because you do not know what to do, but because you see too many options at once. Your brain analyzes every possible outcome, every possible mistake, every possible consequence, and instead of choosing quickly, you keep thinking longer, hoping for a perfect answer that rarely exists. This is connected to analysis paralysis, where too much thinking blocks action. Your brain gets stuck between choices, trying to avoid making the wrong decision. But in reality, the delay becomes the bigger problem, because nothing moves forward while you are thinking, and that creates even more pressure inside your mind. There are moments when you wish your brain was quieter, when things felt simpler, less intense, less complicated, but at the same time, this depth is part of who you are. It allows you to understand people on a deeper level, to notice things others overlook, to think in ways that are more detailed and reflective, even if it sometimes feels overwhelming. Overthinking is often linked to anxiety, because your brain is constantly scanning for potential problems. It tries to prepare you before anything goes wrong, but in doing so, it creates stress in situations that are safe. Research shows the brain cannot always separate real threats from imagined ones. So it reacts to thoughts as if they are happening now, which is why overthinking feels so intense. You might notice your mind is most active at night. When everything is quiet and there are no distractions, thoughts become louder, clearer, harder to ignore, because your brain finally has space to process everything. This is when rumination becomes strongest, replaying the day, analyzing conversations, planning tomorrow, and making it harder for you to relax. And sometimes you blame yourself for it, thinking you are too sensitive, too complicated, too much. But psychology says your brain is doing what it was designed to do. It is trying to understand, predict, and protect. The problem is not the thinking itself. It is how long the thinking continues without stopping, turning useful reflection into endless loops. You are not broken for thinking deeply. You are not weak for feeling more than others. Your brain simply processes the world differently, in a way that is more detailed, more layered, more aware. And that comes with both strengths and challenges. The key is not to stop thinking completely, but to know when to step out of the loop. Because the same mind that overthinks is also the mind that understands deeply, that connects patterns that others miss, that feels empathy in a stronger way, that sees meaning in small details. And once you learn to guide it instead of fight it, it becomes less of a burden and more of a strength.